Had to get that in first. Good morning from a very windswept and gothic-y. Ooh, I like this. Autumnal, bit on the cold side, though, and blustery northwest of Ireland. The trees are going like this, and the crows are going bonkers all around. They're squawking. Leaves are falling everywhere. We do sometimes get those kind of beautiful autumns, falls that they get in like the USA, parts of the USA, and in places like France and the south of England. I don't think we're going to get it this year. I think this year the leaves will just fall off the trees, which is unusual because usually after a warm summer, and we had a nice warm summer, they do go brown. But this year, no, they just seem to be just falling. Anyway, there's a good kind of gothic Tomb of Laija, Vincent Price, Peter Cushing kind of vibe today, which I like. Anyway, it's good for the mind. Good for the mind, this kind of weather. First of all, I want to thank everybody for your lovely happy birthday messages yesterday. I literally got thousands. If I didn't answer to them, I will try to get answer them. They will all be read, acknowledged. There's just so many of them. So you're all fucking gorgeous and beautiful and kind, and I really appreciate that. And I feel good. I feel, you know, I'm not getting any younger, but I don't. I feel youthful. I'm not just saying that. It's not like bravado or kind of midlife crisis. I feel really good lately. I've had my health has taken a huge upturn, uh, and my mind is really feeling sharp, and I'm in the buzz, and I'm very bouncy. And people have even said when they see me walk, and they said you're like hopping around again, like jumping and bouncing and stuff. I definitely do feel good. I do feel better, and I feel like I'm on a better trajectory. So I actually feel like I'm actually, you know, at this stage in your life for each birthday, like that. There's more years behind you than there is ahead of you. But I think I'm okay for another. God, I think I can hit the. I can get the three digits. I really do feel it. Both my parents are well up there, and my mother has a condition that's not nothing to do with aging, but it's but my Opal and stuff is like he's busy and active and stuff like that. So they've got the genetic material to actually do that. So I do feel good. I do feel like I do feel like I've got some great work ahead of me. I really do. So, and I think I think the last 2.5 years has kind of made us all. It's made us realize the preciousness of life. Have you noticed that? Like, they basically held this house prisoner or national prisoner for 2.5 years, and it's made those of us who you went through it, and those of us who have a kind of a wanderlust nature like me, an adventurous nature. It's made you realize that like you've got to get out there and do things and make the most of it. Because when you have fascists ruling the world like we do now, real fascists, not far wrong, real ones, and technocratic fascists, you've got to make the most of it, and you've got to live your life, and that's very important. I think I think that's what distinguishes the tribe and the tribes from the mainstream, is that we sort of like understand the sanctity of existence, of living, and how it's there to be engaged with, rather than to be just sit there watching as it passes by. So thank you again for that. And yeah, I feel brilliant. I feel really good and really bouncy and really positive. And and a lot of that stuff, nearly all of that is not nearly all, but a huge amount of that is down to you guys and your love. It does make life easier for people to meet, to have be surrounded by decent, kind, good souls, and that's what most of us are. Which brings me to other things like this would probably be a put the kettle on kind of day one. I saw they're about this the lunatics in Ireland. They're about to introduce this hate speech law, which Christian Morris said is unenforceable. And and normally, like remember in 2009 they introduced a blasphemy law in Ireland, which was scratched off. That was just some political scumbag bigging himself up, but that was actually removed from the statute books. That law was unenforceable, totally. And I went out of my way to blaspheme on purpose to try and get them to arrest me, to see, I was going to use as a bandstand for paganism and so on. But they couldn't enforce that law. And Christian Morris says they can't enforce this one. I don't know. I mean, I'm not comfortable about it for lots of reasons. Mainly because there's an Irish school teacher went to prison for scientifically acknowledging the existence of chromosomes. This is the kind of, we have mental cases, and so what's happened is it's just like the Bolsheviks again, or the Chinese Cultural Revolution. The political structure is made up of, at the very top you have ruthless, vicious, fascistic monsters. Underneath that you have leadership that's mediocre, of not very bright, not very intelligent, but ambitious. Snivellers that want to get their way up, snivel their way up the top. And below them you have the mentally ill, who are used to enforced. There's the sun. Wagner opera again. But yeah, and so it's funny. I was enjoying that Tomb of Laija weather, but I mean, how do you really enforce? I mean, should the woman, the gobshite in charge with the other mediocre, the current mediocre, uninteresting dullard who's in charge of putting the bill through, said there's been increases in homophobic attacks. Well, the only homophobic attack I'm aware of had any meaning was the murder of 2 men, gay men, and the assault on a third, vicious assault, by a jihadist in Sligo. I don't know, when was jihad part of Irish society? This isn't, they just seem, so here they are blaming ordinary Irish people who don't care about gays, and they don't. They don't go around trying to pander to them. They don't go around doing that. They just don't care. They just get on with their lives. That's how it's always been, how it should be. So how do you define that? How do you define? They say these things when there was the same thing with that young woman that was brutally murdered in the Midlands last year, and you had politicians saying that Irish men should have passes, and it turns out it was an immigrant who did that as well. Or someone who wasn't, say, culturally Irish, who did that as well. And yet it's like every single morning the Irish government wakes up and says, we're at war with the Irish people. What can we do today to attack them? That's literally how every day begins in this country. The government deciding, how can we actually physically, psychologically, emotionally, and financially assault the Irish nation, the Irish people today? And this law is just a new part. I can't, you could say, yeah, in a sane world it might be unenforceable, but in a world where a school teacher goes to jail because he accepts that chromosomes are real, scientific fact, real science, proper old-fashioned science, it's irrelevant if it's enforceable or not. They will use it. So you can have a situation where someone could perceive as being homophobic when they're not really. Homophobic to me would be beating a person up because they're gay, calling them vicious names in public because for no other reason than they're gay, denying them a job or a house or a place to live or social services because they're gay. That's it. That's what homophobia would be to me. Homophobia to me wouldn't be a Christian, a shop where there's 2 Christians who bake cakes and they don't want to make a gay wedding cake. They're a private business. They should do believe that. The same wokies that tell us it's a private, Facebook and Twitter are private businesses, they can do what they want, are the ones who tell small private businesses like cake shops, that don't want to bake a gay cake, that they can't do what they want. That's not homophobia. That's just, it's not like that's the only bakery in the country. Well, that happened in Northern Ireland, but I'm sure there's a bakery down the street be glad for that business. So that's not homophobia to me. Well, it's homophobia in the sense that but it's not homophobia born out of hatred of gay people. It's an issue they have with gays born out of a religious thing they have going on, and it's also a private business. So I don't see how with that will they go to prison? Those people like that. You don't want to bake a gay wedding cake. Where does the law begin and end? Where does it begin and end? It's and it's all being done by the Irish political establishment to. Did you see the film Gangs in New York, where the Irish were getting off the ship? The Democratic Party would say, "Welcome to America, our new Gaelic friends. Here is a bowl of soup and a sandwich, and you can join the Democratic Party over there." Well, that's what they're doing. They're buying votes. They think they're buying future votes. This is what's so stupid about like the Irish political establishment. They're thinking if we pander to all what they call the new Irish, they will all they will all thank us and vote Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael and Labour and PBP and Sinn Féin. I can guarantee you, after a while, you will have these individual groups forming their own political parties. You will have an Islamic, you'll have Fina Mohammedan, and they won't be voting for you; they'll be voting for their own kind. You might even have, Polska, Fina Polska. You know, you just don't know. You just don't know how it's going to end up. But it definitely, this thing of pandering to immigrants doesn't really work. I mean, look at the Democratic Party in America, found that out. The Cubans are all voting for a Republican and have done for decades. And the Latinos voted for Trump in spades in the last election, even though he lost. And so, to me, common sense is the thing to go with. Common sense is the sort of, I mean, and common decency. Be kind to people. If someone is gay, leave them alone. Don't harass them. If someone is a different skin color, race, religion, don't bother them. Let them live their lives, but at the same time protect them. I mean, it seems to me that men like me are the ones who are doing more to protect the gay community than their own leadership. They had that bizarre fiasco in Sligo, waving rainbow flags, when there was only a jihad. Then that was a jihadist attack. It reminded me of the Manchester One thing. It's like take the focus off what really caused it and blame it on someone who had nothing to do with it. And it's just weird. The common sense was to dictate that if that was a jihadist attack, who radicalized them? How did it happen? Did it happen here? Did it happen there? Somewhere else? And you deal with it that way, a truthful way. The same in anything. I mean, he was racist. How do you know? He gave me a dirty look, or he told a racist joke. Did he stop you from getting a job? I mean, the hypocrisy is always inherent in this. You have as watching, Lenny Henry is now openly declaring that the only reason people have a problem with the rings of power is because everyone's racist. Not because it's badly written, terribly acted, and destroys the Tolkien, lore. But that's it. And you want to talk about cultural appropriation? Why is a black English guy, Lenny Henry, doing a terrible Irish accent? And all these awful stage. Someone called it famine cosplay. I think it was the Irish Times. Someone called the Harfoots famine cosplay. I thought that was bang on the money. Stage Irish accents that in like the Irish Spring Soap in America, Magic, Lucky Charms. Irish people don't talk with accents like that. That's a stage Irish accent. And here's like, oh, sure, totally, it goes up and tone, like this. Oh, who's your daddy? Oh, grand. Oh, jeez. This kind of thing. Uh, Ridiculous. But will not liking The Lord of Rings be considered a hate crime? Common sense and the common decency. I mean, to me, I'll always hold by that maxim that Martin Luther King said, if we judge a person by the content of their character and not by the colour of their skin or their religion or race or point of origin. And that's, to me, that's a no-brainer. You judge a person by the content of their character. And you also have to acknowledge that people make mistakes. People can make mistakes. People can. I don't have this Christian mindset of everyone's a sinner who can't, has to be redeemed through groveling. Just once they stop making mistakes and start doing the right things, then it's okay. This whole thing, you can see the sort of puritanical Christian over coating of this whole thing. It's like, the whole concept of a sinner has now been switched onto political correctness and things like that, and wokeism. And I was thinking about, like, speaking of the Puritans and the Irish stage thing, the whole concept of the Irish being a nation of drunks comes directly from the Puritans in America. The Irish didn't have a reputation of being drunks around the rest of Europe before that, or anywhere. And that came from the fact that the Irish were the first immigrant group to America. Now, I know the Puritans arrived there with the Mayflower before that, so on, but they were Americans. They were sort of like Anglos who became Americans. The first immigrant group that were not Anglos or Americans were the Irish. And because they were Catholics, they didn't have prohibitions on alcohol. So they drank alcohol just like the same levels and the same degree that all of the European peoples do. The Irish drunk no more, no less than the Czechs, the Italians, the Germans, the Swedes, the French, the Spanish, the Portuguese. They drunk no more, no less, and still don't. Ireland is not even anywhere near the top of the world alcohol consumption level or alcoholism level. But because it was these Puritans who see devil water, saw the Irish drinking and socialising through alcohol, assumed that he must all be drunkards. That they couldn't detach from the fact that you could do a day's work and then go to the pub. There was something inherently wrong in that because it was devil water. And that's where it all came from. I mean, Irish people work hard and they play hard. And what's wrong with that? But unfortunately, because the Irish were if the Italians had got to America before the Irish, the Puritans would have declared the Italians a nation of drunks because they would have seen them drinking wine and stuff like that. Well, that's how they are. That's how that all came about, and it continues to this day. This just shows to show you that But at the same, do I want laws passed that when I go to America, someone should make a drunken Irish joke? No, I just don't care. I just don't care. And that's, because I know 9 times out of 10 the person might make that remark or that joke is not necessarily a nasty they're ignorant. Ignorant just means they just don't know. They wouldn't be a decent person. In other words, they might make a joke about the Irish and drunks, and yet if I had a problem, they'd be the first one to call an ambulance or try and help me. Or, that kind of thing. So again, content of a character. Not that kind of bullshit. So this is why I find these kinds of laws, anti-discrimination laws, very insidious, because they're primarily designed to get everybody to shut the fuck up. That's what they're for. Shut the fuck up. Well, that's what those laws are. Shut the fuck up. That's what those laws are. Do as you're told. And it's just one more. Every single day, the Irish political establishment and all political parties, independents and wake up in the morning with the primary objective of declaring war on the Irish people. And what can we do today to make their lives more shit? And they do it in your country and they do it in every other country. And, yeah. Winter's no, one time winter is coming. That's that slogan from Game of Thrones, winter is coming. Well, I can tell you for a fact that the winter of all sorrows is coming. the winter of the darkest shadows. There was some muppet on the other day here trying to be smart and saying, you have a gift of prophecy. He thought he was some clever asshole. He was slagging me off them. And no, it's nothing to do with prophecy. It's to do with common sense and science. There's going to be millions of people die after Christmas. And prepare yourself for people dropping dead from the needlecraft, the ones who've had the foghorn, leghorn, rooster, booster. The boy I say boy, And why is that? Prophecy? No, no. We all know now, it's a given fact, that the people who took the needlecraft are immunocompromised. They're not getting better. You see, there was a documentary I saw yesterday, and I shared it, called Safe and Effective. Very good film too. It'll be pulled off YouTube any day now. But it makes the point. It shows what some poor people have been injured by the needlecraft, and are killed by it as well. And as bad as that is, they finish up the program by saying, and the needlecraft didn't work. We still have the Rona. And you see, that's the important point. It's, I'm hearing Normie say things like, why are you still talking about that? That's so 2021. Move on. No, I've moved on. I can move on. You can't. And also, I want revenge for being locked down for 2.5 years. I don't want justice. I don't want a hearing. I want revenge for 2.5 years of my life taken away by evil governments working for evil corporations. Now, it's quite simple. The SPIKE protein is what's causing the recurrence of infection. That's out in all the main documents, okay? Peer reviewed the law. This spike protein, this is another thing, this stuff was all out there before this stuff even started. The DNA has been altered, and DNA is so important in fighting things such as cancers and stuff like that in your immune system. You've had this experimental therapy that they said the RNA would wash out in a matter of 3 months. It's not. It's now coming out of babies' milk. It's mother's milk to their babies. So that's how long it's going to last. It's here forever. It's like a blood transfusion. It's a cellular memory in an organ. It's here forever. And if you have it. And they're the ones getting sick. The people who've had, everyone will tell you, those who haven't been needlecrafted aren't getting sick. Some of us are feeling the healthiest we've felt in years. I feel the healthiest I've been feeling in years. And we just get a regular sniffle or a cold, and that's their immune system getting a top up. The ones who all went to full needlecraft, if they're still alive, they're constantly sick with the Rona and similar things like it. That's because their immune system is collapsing. It's failing in real time. And why did I pick January 7th? Well, the reason for that is that's usually when the flu seasons kick in the Northern Hemisphere. So it's not prophecy, it's science. It's real science, proper old-fashioned science. If you don't have if you're going into the winter flu season, from say January 7th on, and you have you're immunocompromised from the spike protein, which we know is a fact now, scientifically proven, then you are heading towards a possible death, because you will not have the ability to fight the infection. You might be feeling okay now, though many of you don't. Many of you have the needlecraft. You say, I haven't felt right ever since. That's because there's literally another life force inside you from the RNA trying to take dominance of your own life force. And so when the flu season kicks in, they're going to try and say, oh, they're either going to do the long Rona thing, or they're going to say, oh, well, young people have always died of the flu, which is true. It's true. I mean, I nearly died of myself when I was in my early 20s. Young people do die of the flu. It can be very virulent in young people. And when the Rona killed young people, the media were like, oh, tragic story of a 23-year-old nurse who died of the Rona. And they bigged it all up, that But when you have a situation where there'll be thousands of young people dying of this year's seasonal virus, They'll bury it by saying, "Oh, that always happened with young people. They always died during flus." Now it's not weird to them. Now it's acceptable. You see where this is going? So that's why millions will die this next flu season because they're immunocompromised, and there's many who have been needle crafted who will get through it okay, depending on their own physical health and stuff like that. But it seems to me that the more healthy you are, the more. This is what's so weird about it, that it's people who have lived healthy, active lifestyles are the ones seen to be most damaged by it. And that's the RNA. That's the RNA. Your vitality is directly linked, I think, a lot to your genetic makeup. I think your vitality comes from that. And I mean, let's okay. That's a science bit out of the way. Okay, that's not that. The reason why millions are going to die after Christmas is nothing to do with me being a prophet. It's me acknowledging science and common sense. Okay, now let's get that out of the way for fact, right? Let's talk about DNA and what it really means. DNA is more than just, an operating system code for your body. This is why it's been protected by tribes. This is why within pagan philosophy, DNA is considered heritage, is considered a very powerful magical thing. Now, it's only in the last 100 years or so that any kind of racial thing has been brought into that. If you read the ancient works, they don't talk about our DNA as our bloodline is better than anyone else's bloodline. They just say our bloodline is precious, but they're not saying it's better than anyone else. It is precious because it's been sanctified through acknowledgement of the tribe and its structures and its rituals and so on. And this sanctifies that DNA to a degree. And even if you're mixed race, you're a mixed race of different sanctified DNA. So, say your mammy was from West Africa, and you're from the west coast of Ireland, and you're mixed race. When your DNA on both sides are sanctified by your ancestry, it's only fucked up when non-human DNA is brought into the process. And for instance, from monkeys, from primates, this is where it really gets to be a problem. And this is what I think is causing the issues with inside people who've been boosted in foghorn leghorn. And also, and I'm not saying it's true, I'm just saying that in many pagan cultures, the sanctity of your blood and keeping it pure is what gets you reincarnated. Because you might have issues there, but I'm not saying that's completely true. I'm just saying that's something to consider. I could be wrong on that. I could be wrong but I'm not wrong about the winter thing. I'm right about that because that's just science. This is philosophy now, and we're in the world of, and that's all that's about. I mean, when you put monkey DNA into people, don't be surprised when they stop acting like humans, because. This is if a mother has the needlecraft and she's been foghorn leghorned, she's less likely to be protective of her child than she was before that, because now she's part monkey and the child is 100% human, so therefore she wouldn't have the same responsibility or desire to take care of it as she would when she was 100% human herself. Now being part monkey, or some whatever she is now, she sees the child as a foreign child, and therefore she has no problem having experiments done on the child or so on, having it been molested in bathrooms. So this is what they've done. Part of me wonders if the needlecraft was to create a generation of humans who were not fully human and therefore wouldn't have human values or even any desire to save or protect the human race. But we all know there's something at a very deeper spiritual level, which will be talked about in England on the 5th of December. And the winter is coming, like in that book. It'll be a spiritual, psychic, biological effect of winter. And so it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting. But you don't need prophecy, you need street smarts. I mean, I was watching that film yesterday, Safe and Effective, and there was a female, there was a woman there was talking about her husband who was a doctor, and he was so proud of AstraZeneca because it was a British invention. He got the jab and died a day later. And I was like, do these people have any common sense? To me, common sense is you don't mess around with a drug that hasn't been fully tested. And when there's documents all over the internet telling you this before it's released and you still take it, it's like we really have to re-examine what our notions of being intelligent means or being educated, because without a doubt, there are millions out there who think they're educated and think they have intelligence and have less street smart than a kid on a street corner would have, in a poor area, would have had 50 years ago. So, sanguinosis, love yous all, and thanks again. Take care of yourselves, and I'll talk tomorrow.